Sunday of June. Can you believe it? This crazy year that we've been experiencing, and it's already June. We're like more than halfway through already. I cannot believe it. Whether you have joined us for every single one of our church onlines here at the People's Church, or whether this is the first time that you've joined, you've been sent the link, someone's tagged you in it, or you've happened to stumble across, we just want to say that you are welcome here as we do church together, and it is a privilege for us to be welcomed into your home. If you want to connect with someone, it's important that we remain connected in this time. We have many ways that you can get connected with us, and we want to speak to you. So you can email Geoff Bond, People's Church. He's our lead pastor. He'll be waiting to hear from you. We've also got a WhatsApp line that you can contact us on. We've got on our website, you can fill in a praise form or a prayer request form. Fill those in, and our team will be praying for you, we'll be contacting you, and we want to celebrate with you if you have any praise reports. We want to hear them, share them with your TPC family so that we can celebrate together, that we can pray together. We're going to carry each other through this time. How we're connecting has changed, but the reason why we're connecting has not. So this morning we've got another awesome message from Geoff on our series called Shepherded, and it's already encouraged me, and we're going to carry on with that this morning. We've also got resources for your kids. We've got 3 awesome, interactive, really crazy kids services, so make sure to check that out, and that your kids are connecting with God during this time as well. And so now, before we carry on any further, let's pray and just welcome God into this place. Father God, you are the God above all things. We honor you and we give you glory, even in this place, even in our darkness, even when things seem chaotic. Lord, you are still God and you are still good. And we praise you and we lift you on high. Lord Jesus, let us not turn our eyes away from you. We welcome you here into our homes this morning. Have your way in our hearts, in our lives. We worship you, Lord Jesus. And may our hearts be open to receive from you this morning. Holy Spirit, will you move and stir something up in our hearts? May we be comforted, may we be challenged this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. Awesome, guys. Enjoy the service.
My name is Kenny Felix and I'm from Grassy Park. We've been living here now for 36 years. I used to work for a company called Nestle and I've been there for 40 years.
My name is Heather Felix. We're married now for 35 years and we have 4 children. All these years I was a sales rep in Cape Town. We lived in Lansdowne until I was about 9 years old. Then, because of the Immorality Act, my grandfather sold the 2 houses we had, and we moved to Lotus River. And he bought a big farm. It was a chicken farm, and we lived there for quite a few years because my mother and my father was divorced at that stage. We lived with my grandparents all our lives. And then eventually we got our own place with my mother, and we moved onto a masonette in Lotus River, and that's where I grew up.
I'm from Constantia, by the way. I come from a very, very poor background. I mean, when the poor people call you poor, then you must know that you are very poor. And we were 13 children altogether. We lived in a 2-bedroom house, so you can imagine all the fights we had there in that house. And that was life for us, and we had to make the best of it. We were also removed, but I can't say we were forcefully removed because all our stuff was nicely packed on a truck, and they moved us to Lotus River. I met my wife in Lotus River. I had children in Lotus River. I met Jesus Christ also in Lotus River, and that was for me the cherry on top. So I'm not begrudging. I don't have any grudges against anybody for removing us from Constantia. The removals from Constantia was for me a stepping stone into the life that God has planned for me. I had to move to Lotus River to find Jesus Christ. Yes, and I'm so happy. We never want to impress people, but we wanted to let people know that we are salt and we are light. We both are people's people, and we love to mingle with people. We love to know people. We love to be part of people. We love people because God loves people.
The lights start just as a entertainment for the children. You know, it started off very small. 5 years later, it became like a fairy tale. It just went from very small to extremely big, and eventually we made it like an annual thing, a bring and braai, and it really brought the community together. And I think that opened Kenny's mind where the park is concerned, and he just thought, okay, he's got grandchildren, let's see what, and he started by just cleaning it, just keeping it, you know, for children to be able to play in nicely and have a nice time, and you can sit there and read a book. And every day Kenny would do, come rain or high waters, he would be in that park with his coat, with his scarf, with his cap, and he would just clean up, and eventually he started accumulating and planting, and eventually it became a garden.
When I drop Heather in the mornings at work and I come home, I always used to make, there's a guy, there's two guys, come, let's have coffee. So as they pass by.
The bin pickers.
The bin pickers, yeah. But then it hit me one morning when I came back. I asked the woman, what time do you start in the morning? She said, at 4. I asked her, did you have something to eat or to drink? Or she said, nothing. By then, I had my second cup of coffee already. And that thing stuck with me. So with the lockdown, they had nothing to fall back onto because the scrapyard was also closed. So they can't gather something and go sell. So they were completely lost. It was then that we decided, okay, we will prepare a breakfast for them. Like this morning, we started with coffee. This morning we had coffee with soup, with bread and soup. And then we give them a takeaway as well. We had green bean stew as a takeaway for them. It's all in a burger packed, Formalite holder. Yeah, that is for them to take home. So every week they get on a Tuesday they get their breakfast and a takeaway. We have neighbors who know what we are doing, and that one neighbor gives 100 rand. That neighbor gives a pot of soup. That neighbor gives macaroni. Whatever we get, that is what we do. During the lockdown, many people were in darkness. Many people's life was gone without flavor. If we can be salt and add flavor to their life, wow, and be a light unto them, this is what God has called us to do.
Jesus said, you are the salt of the earth, and you are the light of the world. And I must say that both of you, you're salty and you're full of light. Thank you so much for what you do. But more than what you do, thank you so much for what you are.
Right.
It's the love of Jesus that's inside of you that's coming out.
Correct.
And the world is a better place, and Grassy Park is a better place. And you could have been complaining about injustices of this world,
Right.
but you've been improving this world.
Our scripture reading for today is from Ezekiel 34. It says, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to the shepherds of Israel who only take care of themselves. Should not shepherds take care of the flock? You eat the curds, clothe yourselves with the wool, and slaughter the choice animals, but you do not take care of the flock. You have not strengthened the weak, or healed the sick, or bound up the injured. You have not brought back the strays or searched for the lost. You have ruled them harshly and brutally. So they were scattered because there was no shepherd. And when they were scattered, they became food for all the wild animals. My sheep wandered all over the mountains, and on every high hill. They were scattered over the whole earth, and no one searched or looked for them. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, because my flock lacks a shepherd, and so has been plundered and has become food for all the wild animals, and because my shepherds did not search for my flock, but cared for themselves rather than for my flock. Therefore, O shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. For this is what the sovereign Lord says: I myself will search for my sheep and look after them. As a shepherd looks after his scattered flock when he is with them, so will I look after my sheep. I will rescue them from all the places where they were scattered. On a day of clouds and darkness, I will bring them out from the nations and gather them from all the countries, and I will bring them into their own land. I will pasture them on the mountains of Israel, in the ravines and in all the settlements of the land. I will tend them in good pasture, and the mountain heights of Israel will be their grazing land. There they will lie down in the grazing land, and there they will feed in a rich pasture on the mountains of Israel. I myself will tend my sheep and have them lie down, declares the sovereign Lord. I will search for the lost and bring back the strays. I will bind up the injured and strengthen the weak, but the sleek and the strong I will destroy. I will shepherd the flock with justice.
The theme that we've been dealing with in the last 3 weeks, this is the third, has been shepherded. And the question on the table is, what is the shepherd like? And I've been speaking about the fact that often in Scripture, God is described as a shepherd. It's an image that is used often. Leaders in the church are described as shepherds, pastors. And Jesus is given the title the chief shepherd. And we are described as sheep. And last week I spoke from John chapter 10, and I'll return back to John chapter 10 in a while. But I just want to read a few verses from John chapter 1. John chapter 1, the first 5 verses, and then verse 14. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. All matter was created by God. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. Life and light and word. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. And then verse 14, the Word that created everything became flesh, took on human form, and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. If God is a shepherd, what sort of a shepherd is he? What does he look like? How can we understand? How can we grasp? How can we make up our minds, our little minds, about something so great as God? John's gospel was written by the disciple John, Peter, James, and John. They were the three closest to Jesus. They were part of what they call the inner circle. And Matthew, Mark, and Luke have similarities. They call them the synoptics. John is different. John, the Gospel of John, is more mysterious. It's more difficult to process. It's more difficult to understand. And right at the beginning, John chapter 1, he doesn't dive into the story. Matthew, Mark, and Luke tell the story. He doesn't dive into the story. He dives into the meaning, the significance of the story. He goes into, he doesn't talk about the actual events. And so he starts off with, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John chapter 1, verse 1. Deliberately echoing Genesis chapter 1. Then he talks about creation. All matter was made by this Word, Word with a capital W. Then he says that he was life, and that he was light to us. Word, life, light. Word. What is a word? Word speaks about intention, the expression of what is on your mind, the way that you think. Men don't communicate so much as do women, I've been told. Well, that's what Wendy tells me. She says, how can I read your mind? Talk to me. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind. So there's word. Then there's life. What is life? Life is something intangible. I'm not talking about whether you're brain dead or whether you are alive. You can be dead even though you are alive. But life, when we speak about life, we speak about energy, purpose, the life of the party. What does that actually mean? What do they do when you say they're the life of the party? You say, oh, that person's so full of life, full of personality, we mean. We say, life's not worth living. What's happened that makes life not worth living? The quality of life we speak about, we refer to that. Where there's life, there's hope. What do we actually mean? Life is talking to some innate, intangible quality. That's life. And then light. Light brings clarity. Light brings a sense of safety. Light brings a sense of direction. Fumbling in the dark, in the pitch dark. Wendy and I, more foolishness than courage, I suppose, we went and we camped. We were by ourselves in Mana Pools. There was no one else there. And I went to shower that night, and I've got my LED torch. And I had my shower, but the torch doesn't get dimmer and dimmer as the rechargeable battery goes down. It's shining brightly, and then boom, it's off. Nothing happens. And so I was in the shower, and boom, my light went out. And we were camping, and Mana Pools, for those of you who know Mana Pools, you'll know what it's like. No fences, lots of wild animals around. I had a little Pez headlamp, which I put on, but it doesn't shine too far and give too much light. And I had to find my way back to the tent, through the darkness, through the pitch darkness, with my little Pez light, and climbed into the tent and zipped it up and climbed in my sleeping bag. And as I was zipping up the sleeping bag, Wendy will testify, I'm not exaggerating, an absolute cacophony of lion roars started echoing off the ablution block that I'd just been showering, and the lions were there. They'd been there all along. And I would have felt so much safer if I'd had a light. But all I had was my little Pez lantern at that time. But light gives you a sense of safety. And I feel safer now. I feel better. Light. We know what a light is. Well, we don't actually know what a light is, whether it's a wave or whether it's a particle. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about what light speaks to you when we speak in our lives. The word, the life, the light, being the word, the life, and the light came to live in our neighborhood. The word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. The Message version says he moved into the neighborhood. The word, life, light became my next door neighbor, and I was able to watch and see what sort of word he was, and what sort of life he was, and what sort of light he was. And we have seen his glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. He came and lived out God in front of our eyes, so we could grasp what God was about and then make up our own minds, because we'd seen it. We knew what we were talking about. We could say yes or no. We could say follow or not. Trust or cynicism. Love him or hate him. Some decided to hate him. Obey or rebel. So if God moved into the neighborhood, what did the neighbors see? We beheld his glory, John 1:14, full of grace and truth. It's the way he spoke and behaved, and the kind deeds that he did that we're speaking about. He kicks off in John chapter 2 by going to a wedding reception, and where
there's an embarrassing catering miscalculation, and the wine runs out. It's a terrible situation. It's so embarrassing. Jesus is a guest. There are many other guests. Can I have another glass of wine? What are we going to say? And Jesus does his first miracle. He turns water into wine. Lots of it. Gallons and gallons and gallons of wine. Liters and liters of wine, seeing as we metric. And it's not plonk. It is high quality wine. And the story ends in John chapter 2 with John saying, he revealed his glory and his disciples put their faith in him. In other words, that was so kind, that was so generous, and so this worldly, so planted, so real. We'd love to follow a God who's like that, who can help us with our catering problems and does it with such grace and such extravagance. So the water is turned into wine. We can follow a God like that. Larry Norman song. When I was up in Canada, didn't have much money. My clothes were old, my toes were cold, my nose was kind of runny. I met this long hair on the street. He said, man, you look like you could have some food to eat. I said, a glass of Coke and a hot dog's fine. He said, how about some bread and a glass of wine? I said, lead me on, lead me on. Lead me on to where you're going. My body's tired, but my heart's inspired, and my hunger is growing, growing. And so it is that they saw Jesus, and when you turned the water into wine, they said, man, this is somebody that we really can follow. He is truly a shepherd. Then John chapter 3, Nicodemus comes at night, and Jesus spends a long time helping him past his religious blindness. His religion had not helped him. His religion had left him confused, but he had a hunger in his heart. And Nicodemus says, man, that man was so patient with me. He was so gentle. That's someone that I could follow. And it was Nicodemus who took Jesus down from the cross. He learned to love Jesus, and he loved Jesus throughout his ministry. And right at the end, he played that critical part in the story. That's chapter 3. Then John chapter 4. The woman at Jacob's well, the Samaritan woman. If ever there'd been a person who had a history of regret and poor decisions, and who was what kept the rumor and gossip mill going, it was that woman. And Jesus offered her not critique, but satisfaction. Mine goes to you too. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Jesus said, I know all about you, and I've seen all your desperate trying to quench your thirst. I can give you something that'll make you so that you're not thirsty anymore. I can give you what you've been searching for. She went into the town, called everyone, and said, I found somebody. I have found, and she spoke about her hunger and the satisfaction he brought. And the whole town came out to meet Jesus, and Jesus wondered at that. He said, wow, look at that. So many thirsty people in the world. Funny thing, Jesus never seemed to go theoretical. He never seemed to go deep. He went simple. He went constructive. He went kind. He went generous. He went hope. He went accessible. He went fresh start. Think of Peter. That's a kind of God. That's the word, the life and the light that moved into our neighborhood. And they observed him and spoke about him. This God, Jesus, who moved into our neighborhood, brought real change. Think of the woman with the hemorrhage. who'd spent everything she had to get a cure, still wasn't well. He restored hope. Think Jairus' daughter. I could go on. You've got my point. The Good Shepherd is truly good. It says in Psalm 34, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good." And so it is that as God moved into the neighborhood called incarnation, as he moved into the neighborhood and lived and acted out, people flocked to him. This is what they'd been looking for all of their life. In John chapter 10, he speaks not of the true shepherd, but he speaks also of the fake shepherds. And in the passage that Tamsin read earlier on in Ezekiel, the prophet gave the message that God was against the shepherds. Let me address myself to some, not to all, but to some right now. Not everything that flies the flag of faith is healthy and helpful. Religion can be, and often is, abusive, manipulative, bullying, and plain damaging. There, I said it. Jesus spoke of this, John chapter 10. All who ever came before were thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. The thief comes to steal and kill and destroy. I've come that they may have life and have it abundantly. When they saw the true shepherd, something happened inside of them and they said, that's what I want. We're living in a country where there is a sacred trust that has been violated. I read the Sunday Times on Sunday, and page 1, page 3, page 4, page 5, all of those pages had stories of public money that had been stolen. Whether it was money for tanks, where tanks that you could buy, or Jojo tanks you can buy for 5,000 Rand from Macro, were being sold for, or being paid, they were paying 27,000 Rand for them. Money was being stolen from the COVID-19 fund. The UIF, the money that had been set aside from the COVID-19 fund for UIF, there, a couple of million Rand had been skimmed off by an individual. And there were many other stories of people, of corruption. Corruption is a violation of a sacred trust. Public servants are there to serve the public, and the government is there to serve the public. And I was outraged as I read the newspaper, as I usually am outraged when I read the newspaper, by the greed and the stealing that takes place everywhere. This is not right. And we must call on God to judge those people that are supposed to be shepherds of sheep, but are violating a public trust. That is just a little insert that I thought I needed to put in. But people sometimes say, what about, and then they mention some scandal of some religious leader. What about, look at the house they live in, look at the motor car they drive. People love to talk like that. It doesn't mean that just because there is false shepherds doesn't mean there isn't a true shepherd. Just because there is cubic zirconium doesn't mean that there are no real diamonds. Just because you've had a bad experience in romance doesn't mean that true love is a myth. Just because your folks got divorced doesn't mean that marriage is obsolete. And just because you've had a bad experience in church doesn't mean that all churches are fake and false and all Christians are hypocrites. When Jesus moved into the neighborhood, They saw something that was authentic, true, and absolutely wonderful. Jesus came as Word, as life, and as light. Imagine you are up in a chopper, up in a helicopter, nighttime, and you had those night vision binos, and down in the forest below you could see a man running. For him it was pitch dark, but you could see what he was doing because that green light that comes up, you could see where he was going. He was running into tree trunks, he was tripping over roots, he was injuring himself in the pitch dark as he was trying to run. You thought, poor man. Then a light switches on somewhere, and you observe, what does the man do? He sees the light and he turns away and he runs in the opposite direction. You come to a conclusion. That man is a fugitive. He's running away from something. Light shows what's in your heart when light shines. Phil Jenkins, he's a Welshman. His car broke down. The engine stopped. He was in Wales, in the countryside, in the middle of a blizzard. It was nighttime. It was pitch dark. Lights went out. Car engine stopped working. What was he going to do? He knew that if he stayed in the car, his life was in danger. He could freeze to death. His only option was to get out and to start walking. And that's what he did. He climbed out of the motor car. It was so dark, he could just make out the shape of the road. And he started to walk, going to look for help. And the walking would help him keep warm as well. Into the inky dark he walked, but as he came around a bend in the distance, he saw a light shining. And he turned off the road and started to make his way across the fields towards the light with great difficulty. And as he drew closer, he saw it was a farmhouse. And there was a light on outside. It was late at night, but he was in desperate need, and he banged on the door. And as he knocked on the door, immediately the door opened. And there was the farmer and his wife. The wife said, "Come in, you poor soul." Put him down at the table, put on the kettle to make some tea. And she started to make some toast. Phil Jenkins said to them, "Thank God for the light that was shining. I would have been in trouble if that light hadn't been on." "Oh," said the farmer, "my wife sent me out to switch the light on a short while ago. She woke me up and she said, 'This is such a bitter night. Somebody might be in need. Switch on the outside light so they can see where they can come for help.'" Jesus came into the world as light. Phil said they literally had saved his life. In switching on the light, Jesus is the light. You see the place where you can run to for help. Jesus is the Good Shepherd. Jesus is the light. Jesus is the Word. Jesus is the life. He doesn't critique and hold himself aloof. He doesn't make himself out of reach. He comes and makes himself accessible to us. He is close by. He's close by the brokenhearted, the Bible says. I want to say to you right now, walk towards the light. How? How can I walk towards the light? I'll give you a practical way, a simple way. Just pray this prayer with me. Pray it over in your mind, or you can pray it aloud. Up to you. But let's pray this prayer together. It's short and it's simple. Let's pray. Dear Lord Jesus, I've heard how kind and good you are. I am choosing to put my trust in you now. I'm not running away from light. I'm stumbling towards the light. Please put up your hand and help me. Take me in. Make me your child. Forgive my bad decisions, my foolish deeds. Make me your child. I will follow if you will help me. I am willing. Amen.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship so light, I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises so loud, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you say. If it all reveals your nature so alive, I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you so loud, so will I. If the stars were made to worship so loud, if the mountains bow in reverence so loud, if the oceans roar your brightness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes away, send it so will I. If the rocks cry And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art, covered in love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart in a billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But one measure could amount to your desire. You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
I'm taking up the offering right now. It says this in Proverbs 11:24. One man gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. That's a principle of life. Stinginess leads to loneliness. Stinginess leads to blandness. Stinginess leads to a constrained, unhappy life. But generosity leads, it's a principle of life, not only of the Bible, that generosity brings about a wonderful quality of life. Last week you saw Una and Fotis and their story. This week you saw Heather and Kenny and their story. At the end of both stories I said, you've done all this, have you become poor through it? And immediately the chorus comes, no, not at all. Our lives have been wonderfully enriched. But you know that already because you're generous. Thank you for your generosity. God bless you as you give more, as you give wonderfully, as you give extravagantly. You can give via EFT, via SnapScan. Tonight at 5:30, 17:30, we're going to be having communion via Zoom. All you need to do is get your wine or juice and your crackers or unleavened bread and assemble that, get the little table set, rally the family around, and at 5:30 this afternoon we're going to be doing a Zoom session with communion. If you don't know how to get onto Zoom, you can contact Hans, but the details are also up on the screen, how to connect onto Zoom. And then you heard Kenny and Heather Felix tell a little bit of their story. It was edited down to just a few minutes, but it was 27 minutes of recording that I took. Wonderful story. So proud of the people that are a part of this church. And on Wednesday night, the 1st of July, we're going to be having a team night and a report to the people. We're going to be telling you everything that's been happening, where we're going, give you snippets of news, and tell you of how people have been helped over the last period of time. And then on Tuesday, the 7th of July in the evening, via Zoom, we're going to have next steps. That is what TPC is about. You may have been watching the programs and been enjoying them. You might want to know more about the church, more about its history, how to get involved, how to come on board, how to come in the front door. These are things that we're going to be speaking about with our Next Steps program. It'll be led by Wendy and myself, Hans and Laura, and we'll be able to make direct contact with you and find out more about you as well. I'm so looking forward to that. Thank you everybody who gives us feedback. Thank you everyone who sends messages. Thank you people who write emails saying what they enjoy and how the messages and the programs have gone down in their world. Thank you so much. God bless you all.